welcome, Marah, to episode 9 of the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. So for those tuning in, today we have Marah Odeh, who's a registered dietitian, also an old friend of mine as well.
Yeah.
So I guess we could start by telling those tuning in a little bit about your background, how you got into the industry, and what exactly is it that you do.
So I'm a dietitian since 2017. Funny enough, no one knew that until I started.
As I was just saying, I didn't even know as well.
I just started posting recently, but I've been a dietitian now for quite a while.
Cool.
I studied in the UK and I worked there for quite a while, but very different to the industry in Dubai.
Sure.
Over there, I was more in hospitals, so acute care and chronic care, mainly with inpatients.
Okay.
And I specialize in gastroenterology health because I was really interested in all of like inflammatory bowel disease,
Sure.
IBS, pancreas health, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, I moved back to Dubai.
Okay.
I grew up here, so I moved back here.
Yeah.
And then I worked with Abu Dhabi for about a year. Again, it was all inpatients,
Sure.
so mainly tube feeding.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that you hear on Instagram, like about specific diets, I didn't really practice that in hospital care. It was
Right.
mainly until I moved to, now I work in a brain health and performance center.
Okay.
And that's all about longevity.
Awesome.
And the type of clients we get have conditions like diabetes, strokes, brain injuries, and so on.
Sure.
And that's when I started really getting into, okay, now taking it out of the hospital, what's the best diet we can follow?
Mm-hmm.
And not just diet, I work a lot with physiotherapists, neuropsychology, so it's a lot of holistic care.
Fantastic. I think that's so important.
Yeah, looking at it from every angle, not just nutrition.
Absolutely.
So that's a summary of what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. And, it's great that you mentioned that because looking at things holistically is something that I've been getting into recently over the past few years. Before I was, looking at nutrition as a very fragmented part of health. It's like, okay, nutrition is this and everything else is that. But actually, as human beings, we're very much holistically interconnected, right? And nutrition is a huge part of it. Not just for your well-being and your fitness and things like that, but also for your overall health, right? So I guess we'll continue by, I just wanted to ask, so your common struggles that you face with some of your clients, what do they come to you for? What are they looking for? And what are some issues or some common issues that you face?
So funny enough, some people come to me not knowing what they need or
Yeah.
if they need help or if nutrition can solve one of their problems or whatnot. So everyone is very, very different.
Sure.
And then I also have some clients who, I'm trying to think. I have some clients also who know everything about what's healthy and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
This is healthy, this isn't, I should have more of this, but then they don't know how to apply it.
Sure.
And they have their own challenges, so we have to tackle some barriers.
Sure.
So everyone is very different.
Yeah.
But the type of clients I see, again, some people are healthy and they just use nutrition as a way to feel better, to exercise better,
Yep.
to concentrate better, work better, and so on.
Sure.
And then I have clients who have uncontrolled diabetes, who have very high cholesterol levels,
Sure.
or hormonal imbalances for women especially.
Yep.
So we use nutrition to see how can we help improve their condition.
Sure.
Using nutrition, but in a way that's very healthy easy to follow.
Sure.
Not something that's so rigid like what you mentioned. There's
Right.
a lot of, okay, we know what to do, but how can we apply it in our lives
Absolutely.
in a way that's not so strict and scary
Yeah.
and intimidating?
Absolutely. And when you say hormonal imbalances, is that things like PCOS, things along that sort of thing?
A lot of PCOS, and the trend that I see is a lot of women get diagnosed with PCOS, but they
Yep.
don't know nutrition plays a huge part of that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I even had clients who get prescribed certain supplements from their gynecologist, but the supplement name is quite complex, so they don't even know it's a supplement. They think
Sure.
it's a medication.
Sure,
and then I go
sure.
like, that's a supplement. And
Which supplement
nutrition.
are you talking about?
There's a lot of different types of folic acid, for example,
Yeah.
and depending on, I don't remember the exact names, but there's depending on the brand name, they come in all different forms.
Sure.
And it's just folic acid. When you Google it, it's literally folic acid.
Right,
So
right.
it just shows you nutrition's a big part of the management. It doesn't cure anything, but
Right.
it helps manage the symptoms a lot better.
Sure. And is weight loss a common goal of your clients? Like, do they come to you for losing weight and getting in shape? Is that
Yeah.
a big one?
Yeah, so many of them. I think everyone in Dubai just wants to.
That is true.
Yeah, everyone wants to get skinny and
Yeah,
lose weight.
absolutely. So yeah, I think it's a perfect opportunity to dive into that topic a little bit because, like you're saying, most people, tend to gravitate towards that goal, whether it's for aesthetic purposes or just health purposes. So yeah, for those tuning in, maybe we can talk a little bit about weight loss, separate the facts from the fads basically, and basically help people that are looking to lose weight and give them tips and pointers. So anything you'd like to start with on that?
First thing is keep it super simple.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Now that you've been on social media for a while.
Yeah.
I just started and I noticed, oh my God, everything on there is so confusing.
So confusing.
And even me that's experienced in this, I sometimes question myself and I'm like, wait, it doesn't make sense. Don't believe anything that you're seeing.
Like every other day you open up social media, it's like, okay, don't eat dairy because of this. Don't eat gluten because of that. Don't eat carbs because of this. Don't eat... It's like, okay, so what do I actually eat, right? And then somebody that's getting all their advice from social media as opposed to going to like a qualified professional, I can see why they get so confused, right? And they don't know where to start because it's just a whole jungle out there, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think keeping it simple is a great way to start, right? Because everybody thinks it's super complex and it's very intricate. Yes, there could be some challenges along the way, but I think, like you said, keeping it simple is one of the most important things to tackle in the beginning. Yeah, and then so do you educate your patients or your clients? Are the clients patients?
Outpatients, I say clients.
Okay.
So it took me a while to kind of change the words, but clients, yeah.
Okay. Do you educate them on like calorie balance, things like that?
Yes. So I tailor it based on who I'm getting and the number of issues that they have. For example, if I get someone who is overweight and does need to in fact lose weight and doesn't sleep well and doesn't exercise at all and smokes a lot or drinks a lot or anything, I tackle one thing at a time.
Sure.
So the first thing might not be nutrition alone. It could be, let's work on your sleep, because if you don't sleep well, that impacts your hormones, your hunger levels, how you're feeling, etc. So that's what I mean by keeping it simple. Focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
And when we do tackle nutrition, it could be the first few weeks focusing on just improving their protein intake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second month could be focusing on fiber. So this is what I mean. I keep it very, very simple for everyone.
Right.
The reason why it works right now with my clientele is because they come to the clinic and it's a 3-month program. So thankfully, I'm able to follow them up on a weekly basis. And I definitely have them for 3 months. But for majority of people, they just come in for one consultation, especially if it's an online thing.
Right.
So for them, I would say number one thing on social media, if anyone has strict rules, don't listen to them.
That's a great one.
Do you agree with that?
Oh, 100%.
There's no like black and white with...
And social media is very polarizing like that, because everybody gets attention by saying, hey, don't eat this, you have to eat that. Whereas in reality, like you're saying, it's usually somewhere there's like a gray space that you can play around with, and it depends on the client, depends on the person, their preferences, on so many different factors, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big red flag actually, when someone is very polarizing and saying that you have to do this or you can't do that. It's usually a red flag.
It's not correct.
Exactly.
And then the calorie balance, like what you said, that's a huge one. I think it's really important. You want to understand food and do it lifelong and make the right decisions.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be obsessed with calories, but you should have a basic understanding, especially in the beginning stages.
Absolutely. I think it's so important, because what I've seen with my clients is that a lot of them aren't aware of the calorie balance law, basically, or whatever you want to call it, right? So a lot of people aren't aware that calories is what actually at the end determines your net weight loss or weight gain. Yes, there's a million factors that go into the calories in, calories out equation, like you were saying, sleep and hormonal disruptions, and everything goes into that equation. But at the end of the day, it is still falling under that calorie balance equation, right?
Yeah.
So we consume our calories through food and drink, which is the more obvious part. And then we expend calories in so many different ways, right? It's not just exercise. It's our metabolism, basically, our metabolic rate. our digestion, our exercise, our non-exercise activity, like basically what we're doing now, or just walking around. There's so many different ways to expend your calories. So there's a lot that goes into the equation. So it's simple, but under the simplicity, there's like a ton of factors that can influence it. And like you were saying, it's important to have an understanding of calories. Maybe not best to be obsessive with it, but it's important to understand it. And once you have that awareness, you get much better at things like portion control, selecting certain foods over others, making smart swaps, just so that it fits into your goals and your lifestyle, basically.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for people to know that, because even if people have the mindset, if I want to go on a diet and lose weight, I can't have chocolate or cake, or my life is over, I can't go out with my friends, but that's not true.
Yeah,
if you know that, I don't know, a donut can be less calories than an avocado, you would choose the donut just to give you that satisfaction for the day. It's not nutritious, but it's part of balanced
It's a part of
living.
a balance, exactly. I think it's important to know, we're not saying that like, oh, you should be eating donuts over avocados, but it's giving people just the knowledge that if your goal is weight loss and you do give in to a donut, it's not the end of the world. And it can be part of your flexible diet, like you said. And most importantly, for them not to worry that their whole diet is messed up, right? Because a lot of people have that black and white thinking you can only eat healthy foods to lose weight. And the minute you have something that's deemed not healthy or not nutritious, then your whole diet is messed up, basically.
Yeah, and I agree with that a lot, because also I work a lot with people who binge eat, and is trying to understand how they fall back into that pattern, that one donut that they think is so unhealthy, where it's okay, it's not that bad. They go back into eating everything, and then they feel bad, and then they eat everything again, and in that cycle. And that's when you hear people say, "Khalas, the diet will start on Monday. It will start," So this is why it's important to know there is flexibility. And it's okay to keep failing. You just have to keep trying.
Absolutely.
I think we've all been there, where we tried to diet over and over again, and you eventually reach a place that it works, but you have to try and not wait till the next week and the next week.
Absolutely. Like you're saying, like, there's no such thing as like, oh, I messed up, let's start again on Monday. You can start again like right now, right? Your very next meal can get you sort of back on track in line with your goals. You don't need to wait till Monday. You don't need to wait till it's a lifestyle, basically. That's what I try to help my clients with, is just to let them know that this isn't a sprint. We're in it for the long term, right? Because our goal isn't to lose weight unsustainably and then we lost the weight, and then what happens after that? If you haven't integrated it as part of your knowledge, as part of your lifestyle, you may not be able to sustain that in the long term.
Yeah, and that's why most people do put on the weight back after they lose so much weight. So you need to do it slowly and gradually. And people don't like hearing that at all, but it is part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, so I've seen some cases where people can lose weight a little bit faster, but it still comes down to it being part of integrating it as part of your knowledge and your lifestyle. Because if you lost the weight without just doing some extreme, like water, cutting, fasting, diet, all these things that happen, sure, you lose the weight. And the minute you stop doing what you did to lose the weight, like you said, you rebound and everything just comes back, basically. So that's a big point, I think. And what about like things like fad diets? I don't know if you face a lot of people asking you things about like keto, carnivore, paleo, Atkins, the billion diets basically that are out there.
Yeah, there's so many.
So many.
Look, I think every diet serves a purpose. Some people do benefit from ketogenic. Some people do benefit from this or that. And it's good to kind of go out of routine for a while. But generally speaking, these diets are not long-term. The research around it isn't long-term either. So there are specific diets that I'm fully with, and I try to push as much as possible, keeping it basic, again, Mediterranean diet. You can fit the rules within the Mediterranean diet into any culture. So this is why I like it, whether you're Arab or Asian or American, European, the Mediterranean diet works for that. And there's a lot of research around that. So that's what I'm really big on. The ketogenic and carnivore and everything else, it doesn't serve a purpose long term.
Right.
You might benefit initially because you have to cut out all the bad foods.
Yep.
And people start to think, oh, it's because of the bread and the pasta and the dairy. It's not. It's because you stopped having all the sugar and the processed snacks.
Higher calorie foods,
basically. It's back to calories, right?
Yeah,
that's why they
is.
think.
Yeah.
And when I talk about diets, it's quite difficult because it's also quite emotional for some people.
Absolutely.
It's part of your culture, who you are, what you choose to eat every single day.
Yeah.
So I find it difficult sometimes when I'm speaking with my clients, don't do the carnivore diet, but they've been doing it for a while and they feel it's been working for them. So it's also trying to change their mindset and tell them there is a healthier way of doing things. When you go in, for example, a carnivore one, I keep saying that one because that's, I think, the most one that's
for sure.
on social media. And you're lacking all of the fiber in that diet.
Yeah.
You're lacking the fiber. It's compromising your gut health, which compromises your immunity and so many other things. And that's just like the basic of it.
And it's a ton of saturated fat as well. All you're eating is meat and butter.
Yeah. Over time, you'll see it will impact your cholesterol levels.
Of course.
Especially if you have like a genetic predisposition. You won't find out until it's too late.
Absolutely.
And that's hard to reverse. And most people then need to go on medications. That has side effects. So you just fall into this whole cycle just because you followed one diet.
Absolutely. And like you're saying, carnivore specifically, I see that getting pushed a lot nowadays on social media, in the fitness scene as well. Some bodybuilders are on it. And I personally think that it's, like you're saying, just not healthy for you, where we're not meant to be eating meat and butter only. And like you said, lacks fiber, it lacks so many different nutrients as well. And cholesterol levels can shoot through the roof, which I think is quite a common issue, especially here in our region. I tend to see a lot of people that have higher cholesterol levels. I don't know if that's something that you see as well. Is that common for you?
I see a lot of people that have high cholesterol, high sugar, and also despite the high meat intake that we generally as Arabs or people in Dubai consume, they have a lot of B12 deficiencies, folic acid deficiencies, and you start to think, why is that happening? You're consuming so much meat.
Sure.
But I think my theory is that their gut health isn't as strong as it should be, because that's what helps you absorb all the nutrients.
Sure. Yeah, very well.
So you're probably not pairing the foods correctly, and your gut health isn't as strong as it should be. As optimal as it should be. And then, like you mentioned something about, for example, bodybuilders go on that diet. They have a very specific goal that the average individual doesn't.
Right.
So it might work for them for a while. Sure, continue for a little bit, but for the average person, it doesn't work.
Absolutely. So. And funnily enough, even for bodybuilding, so when it comes to building muscle, consuming enough carbohydrates is actually very important to help you. So first to fuel your workouts, and then to actually help you build muscle as well. So even for that, I wouldn't consider it optimal whatsoever.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. What about protein? Maybe we can talk a little bit about the importance of protein, all the things that it does from a health perspective, from maybe even a weight loss perspective. I think that's, probably one of the more, all macronutrients are important, of course, but it's probably the most one that people I see tend to lack getting enough of in their diets. What would you like to touch on protein?
Protein. So I think everyone needs, and the research shows everyone needs at least 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So that's the basics, the simplicity of it.
For what goal is that? For health?
For maintenance, for overall health, to maintain your muscle mass.
Right.
Where I work right now in my clinic, I tend to see my clients are 50, 60 plus. So for them, the 1 gram doesn't apply because they're trying to build muscle, because we lose muscle as we age. So it depends on your age. But I recommend starting basic from 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. And I can go up to 2 grams. It depends on the client's goals. But from going from, let's say if someone's consuming 50 grams of protein to go up to 100 grams in one day, it's really, really difficult when you're also trying to correct so many other things that they're doing.
Right.
So very gradually, I try to increase it. And also it's easier on the digestion if you're not used to it. So I know it's like not a very straightforward answer, but it can be anywhere between 1 to 2 grams, depending on your goal. I think some people have more than that. From my experience, I don't see a huge benefit from it.
There's a point where more than this amount of protein just doesn't benefit you much anymore.
Yeah. And even sometimes you reach a point you're getting the 2 grams because you want to gain muscle mass, especially for men who want that bigger, more muscly look.
Yeah.
But then they reach a point they're not able to lose fat anymore. So you have to play around with their diet. You reduce the protein, you increase it. It's still beneficial no matter how you do it. So.
So like something I wanted to mention regarding protein is the importance of having enough. If your goal, again, coming back to weight loss, which is a lot of people's goals, the importance of protein for weight loss, because a lot of people, at least my clients, they would think that protein is primarily only to build muscle. But if you want to lose weight, it's like, okay, it's not as important anymore. But it actually is very important for weight loss as well, specifically for fat loss, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a difference for those listening between weight loss and fat loss. Weight loss is just your weight, literally. If you cut your hair, you lose weight, right?
Yeah.
It could come from muscle, from bone tissue, hair, fat, water, from so many different places, right? And that's why people's weight fluctuates on a daily basis. It's mainly water fluctuations.
Yeah.
But of course, most people's goals when they say weight loss is they actually mean fat loss, right? Nobody just wants to lose muscle or lose other tissue.
You say that, but by the way, I still get clients and women who are in their 60s, 70s. We would think we wouldn't care about our weight at that age.
Yeah.
And we do the body composition scale. We look into the fat, the muscle, everything.
Yeah.
And I tell them, you lost weight, but it's muscle. And they're like, oh my God, I lost weight.
Yeah.
And they get so happy.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, again, the psychology aspect of it.
Absolutely. It's because it's very ingrained in us that like losing weight is good and gaining weight is bad, regardless of where the weight comes from, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, people will just want to see the scale go down sometimes, right? As opposed to actually seeing what's happening on the inside, or at least aesthetically, or health-wise even. So yeah, that's a funny point that you mentioned. So yeah, coming back to the whole fat loss and the importance of protein for it. So one, I would say it's important for muscle retention while losing weight. So just back to what we were saying now, when you're losing weight, if you're eating enough protein, your body will tend to take that weight from your fat stores as opposed to your muscle stores, right? So if you keep the protein jacked up, the split of weight loss, so if you lose 10 kilos, for example, instead of it being 5 and 5, muscle and fat, it tends to be like 8 and 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
There's more of a shift towards fat loss as opposed to muscle loss if your protein is high. It is also good for satiety and satiation as well. So getting full on a calorie deficit is one of the most important factors, right? Because when we're losing weight, we need to reduce our calories, right? And when we reduce our calories, we need to make sure that we're still getting full enough. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to stick to that diet. So when you have enough protein, you're making sure that you're getting full and staying full so that you're no longer looking for the snack cupboard or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's an important one as well.
That's a really important point. And also it's important for blood sugar spikes as well.
Yeah.
That's a huge one.
Absolutely.
Pairing it when you're having carbs, it stops your blood sugar from rising way too high. So
absolutely.
That's another big one.
Yeah, for sure. Also when it comes to like overall well-being as well, it also helps regulate your nervous system. So people that, for example, can get anxiety or anxious, if you're eating high GI foods or very sugary foods, for example, that can help get you a little bit anxious. Whereas when you eat protein, it helps regulate your nervous system. This is something, again, I've been getting into with the whole holistic well-being. And I've come across the importance of protein for nervous system regulation as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, protein is just super important. It's probably, like we were saying, one of the more under-consumed macros from the three. And I thought we'd just mention it today just because so many people don't get enough of their protein in their diet.
And since we're mentioning all the benefits and you're talking about the nervous system side of that, also to say that certain types of protein helps produce specific hormones in your gut, one of them being serotonin, which is different to the serotonin we produce in our brain.
Sure.
But the one we produce in our gut is what helps our digestive system relax. So that's part of the reason why people tend to feel more relaxed if we're looking at it from that way, from consuming high protein foods.
Interesting.
I have a big thing around gut health. So anything we consume, I'm like, okay, what is it producing? What is it doing in your gut?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only fiber, but also protein helps produce the happy hormones that we do want to help your digestive system relax.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think gut health is so important. And it's a, area of research that's getting more and more widespread nowadays, because the importance of your gut health is so important. So there's a lot of new research coming out on gut health. What about muscle gain? Do you face any clients that are looking to put on some muscle? What do you advise typically for that? What's your 2 cents on that?
So different for men and women. Normally it's the men who say, I want to put on muscle. Women need a little bit more education around that, because that's when we talk about the weight and everything. It
has a stigma. A lot of women, I think, are afraid to gain muscle because they think they're going to become like the Hulk automatically.
Exactly.
Which doesn't happen. Even for men, that doesn't happen, right? It's a very slow, lengthy process. Nobody just buffs up overnight. So it's a big misconception, and I think it's a big stigma for women being afraid to gain muscle.
And I always think 2 things of it. First thing, your experience might be different because you work directly with clients to work on muscle mass, but I feel a lot of it is genetics. It's like you can have 2 people putting the same amount of work, same diet, but one gains more muscle. You will eventually gain it. It just takes more time. And a second thing is with the women who do become a bit bulkier when they're weight training, my theory, again, in my experience, is that it's because when they start weight training, it's something new and they get hungry and they eat more, they're in a calorie surplus. So it's not from the muscle mass or the weight training at all. It's more like the diet, but then they tie these 2 things in together and they just stop doing everything.
Interesting.
So it's trying to tackle it from so many different aspects depending on the person.
Right. No, that's interesting. And what do you typically like? So let's say a man or woman wants to, put on some muscle mass. What would you advise, recommend? What are like the typical recommendations for that?
High protein foods, always. That's the number 1 thing. Whether they start weight training right away or not, get the habit in, get more protein in your diet. Second thing, more weight training. And even if they don't like weight training or if they don't exercise at all, I start off by saying, okay, what do you like? Start off with something you like and then slowly integrate weight training back in. Some people find it really helpful getting a personal trainer to kind of push them and give them the accountability and the support. So I think that's a huge, big thing. And thankfully, I do work with a team of physiotherapists and they do the weight training with them.
Okay.
So it helps. It helps.
Sure.
But for the ones who are not coming in the clinic and I see online, it's either get a personal trainer or start off by doing something you simply like and then get light dumbbells and just do twice a week for 20 minutes to begin with. But you have to do weight training.
It's
eventually you have to get there.
Absolutely, it's important. So what I tell my clients, for example, that want to gain muscle, so obviously weight training, like you said, is super important, because if you're not creating the stimulus for your muscles to grow, you can do all the other stuff and you'll gain minimal, if any, amount of muscle, because you're not providing your body with the stimulus to gain muscle, right? So what happens is in the gym, we're essentially training the muscles and letting them know, hey, we actually are doing some work now. So you're providing the signal for your body to start building the muscle in the gym. And then, of course, when you go home, you sleep, you rest, you recover, you eat, and eat enough protein as well. That's where the building process actually starts, right? And then in the personal training side of things, for those listening and that are interested, when you want to gain progressive muscle over time, you need to be constantly providing your body with a stimulus for it to grow.
Correct.
So if you're, for example, able to lift 10 kilos on a certain exercise easily, if you continue to stick to that 10 kilos for a year or 2, you would have gained the muscle that you need to gain, and then you don't gain any more muscle beyond that point. So that's why it's important to keep a certain stimulus so that your muscle is always forced to adapt to grow muscle, basically, up until the point where you're content with the amount of muscle mass that you have, either from an aesthetic point of view or from a health point of view. And then you can sort of maintain your program or your diet as is to maintain that, basically.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, how you're saying it. Absolutely. And also, I think talking about recovery, because you mentioned recovery briefly, that's where the magic happens. Like, you have to have recovery.
And it's often neglected, actually. You know, the recovery, a lot of people think it's just, okay, I need to hammer 7 days a week in the gym. But if you're not resting and recovering, then you're not allowing time for, like you said, the magic to happen, basically.
Yeah. And even when we talk about exercise, so weight training is a big one. Some people are more obsessed with Pilates, some people with paddle tennis. It was a huge thing. And they have to know the difference is Pilates, yoga is amazing for mobility. You need it. Paddle tennis or HIIT training, it's great for these quick bursts of energy that you need. And weight training is good for the slow, controlled movements. Everything serves a purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ideally, you want to get a bit of everything.
Absolutely.
But slowly getting there, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, they each serve their own purpose.
Yeah.
Some are fun, some are social, some are more cardio-based, some are more muscle-based. So it's good to incorporate a different routine or different exercises in your routine.
Yeah.
What about supplementation? Any general... So obviously with supplementation, for those listening, it's important to take supplements if and when you need them, catered for your specific deficiencies or requirements, right? But what are some that you see that a lot of people could potentially benefit from?
So supplements is so interesting for me.
Yeah.
I was really against it years back in the beginning of my career.
Sure.
I said everything you can get from your diet. You shouldn't rely on supplements and so on. Now that I'm working more in the longevity space and there is more research coming up with different types of supplements, I'm more open to it. I just think you should get your diet right to at least 80% right or 75% right, and then start putting supplements in. You shouldn't go for electrolytes if you're not having, 2 fruits a day. Like, what is the point? So I think it's a great addition. The ones I always prescribe or recommend is vitamin D, of course. That's more of a hormonal reason behind it. You need vitamin D.
And funnily enough, here in Dubai, even though it's like super sunny all the time, a lot of people are vitamin D deficient just because we're not actually out in the sun because it's too hot a lot of the time, right?
And if we're outside, it's not in the right time. So,
exactly, So we're either driving or in our offices or in the malls or whatever, but we're never, out and about as much. So a lot of people I see are actually vitamin D deficient. So go ahead. So
that's one thing. And it's interesting, we both saw the same trend. Omega-3, that's an absolute must-have, not just for cholesterol. It's great for brain health, and that's something I work in a lot. And also other supplement that I'm recommending recently is NMN supplements.
Say that again?
NMN.
I haven't heard of it.
It's a precursor to NAD.
Okay.
So it helps with energy production, mitochondrial function. In the longevity space, it's growing.
Interesting.
But you shouldn't go on it for a long amount of time in a row. You do need to take breaks from it. So it helps with energy. So that's one I've been doing a little bit more recently. It's difficult to recommend specific things because everyone is so different.
Yeah, but honestly, like for me, vitamin D and omega-3 are probably the only two that are okay to like generally recommend for the mass population, right? Vitamin D, like we were saying, so many people are deficient. And then omega-3, a lot of people, including myself, don't eat enough, say, fatty fish, or they just don't get enough omega-3. So it's a great, easy way to supplement and get that beneficial nutrient in, basically.
And I think another one also that can be generalized is magnesium. There's different types of magnesium. The two I recommend the most, and I think it's the most readily absorbed in the body, is magnesium glycinate. So that's great for sleep. And magnesium citrate, which is great for digestion and muscle aches from if you're going to the gym and things. So these are another two supplements that can be generalized. It's pretty safe. If you take it in excess, your body will just get rid of it on its own.
Sure.
So that's a big one also.
And again, for those listening, if you're interested in putting on muscle mass, creatine monohydrate has some benefits for sure. It's not magic, but it does help. The research has been shown. It's probably the most research supplement in the entire health and fitness industry.
Interesting.
Number one, even more than like protein powders say, which we'll mention also in a second. But yeah, creatine monohydrate has been, I think there's like 1,000 studies on creatine monohydrate. And has been proven time and time again to be safe and effective as well.
Can we talk about the weight gain, water retention part of that?
Yes, we can actually. And it's very interesting because there's a huge stigma around the water retention or the water gain from creatine monohydrate. But I'll clarify things because yes, there is water retention or water gain, but it's not extracellular water retention, it's intracellular water retention. What that means is that the water that's being gained is inside the muscle cells. But that's normal because muscle cells are already 75% water. So when you gain muscle, you do gain water weight inside the muscle because that's what it's made of. So creatine increases the water inside the cells and not outside the cells. So you don't get the watery, flubbery look that most people associate typical water retention with. So the creatine doesn't give you that whatsoever, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a misconception that is widely misspread basically around the internet. And a lot of people didn't catch the difference between the two. So it's great that you mention it because it doesn't give you that flubbery, watery look that most people are afraid of.
Most women in specific.
Exactly. Like you hear water retention, you're like, oh, I don't want that.
Yeah.
But again, there's a difference between intracellular and extracellular water retention. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's important to clarify.
Yeah. And I've researched creatine recently, not from the exercise muscle side of things.
Yep.
I researched it more with brain health, dementia risk, Alzheimer's, that sort of thing. And there is some research showing that it helps reduce the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Sure.
So that's another area of creatine that's being
absolutely.
researched.
Absolutely.
And it has so many benefits.
So many
what
benefits.
You said,
A lot of cognitive benefits as well.
Yeah.
I think there's some on like attention, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure there's, was it attention? Can't remember exactly what it was now, but it definitely has some cognitive effects as well. I think there's even studies on depression as well and the link with creatine. So yeah, it's just if you can afford it and you can put it in part of your routine, especially if you're a gym goer or looking to add muscle mass as well, it's a good general recommendation of a supplement.
What time of the day do you recommend?
It doesn't matter. So creatine is not acute. It's not like something like caffeine. So caffeine, if you're taking it like as a pre-workout supplement, you want to take it before your workout, not too close to bedtime because it's an acute supplement or an acute drug.
Yeah.
It takes its effect immediately. Creatine is not like that. Creatine saturates in your muscle cells over a period of time. So the timing of the day doesn't matter. Once your muscle cells are saturated, as long as you're getting it in once per day, it doesn't matter what time you're getting it in.
Okay.
And for those interested, 3 to 5 grams is the general recommendation. 3 is the lower side. Maybe a lot of women would maybe start on 3, and for the heavier guys, maybe 5 is a good place to start.
I think you're convincing me to give it a go.
Yeah, why not?
I had the water retention, even though, again, I'm a dietitian. I'm like, I don't want to
no, absolutely. It doesn't do that. No, for sure. I used to be on creatine for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And then I just stopped just because I was tired of mixing in the powder, and then I moved to the pills, and then the pills went out of stock, and then I just stopped, basically. So not magic, but it helps for sure. It
helps. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. What about Ozempic and Mounjaro? Do you get any clients asking you about that? Do you know much about it? What are your takes on that?
I want to say, I don't want to give a percentage, but so many people are on it now.
Yeah.
So many people.
Yeah.
Someone I spoke to recently, this doctor, she went to a conference and it was around Mounjaro medications, and they were showing the percentages of how much is sold in each country. And Dubai alone, not United Emirates, Dubai alone was like the biggest compared to other places.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It just shows you everyone here is taking it.
Yeah.
Again, this is something I was very against in the beginning. I was like, what do you mean? It's for diabetes. This isn't good. You're going to lose muscle.
Sure.
And all of that stuff. My mind has shifted a little bit. I'm more open to it, but in specific cases. So let's put the diabetics on one side, because obviously if they need it and the doctor recommended it, that's a different thing. Yeah,
that's a medical
We're talking about the average person.
Looking for weight loss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some people benefit from it if they're someone who is really morbidly obese and they've tried everything and it's not working. It just needs to be done under supervision. So under, again, either a personal trainer, a coach, a dietitian, a doctor, to make sure that they're losing fat, not muscle, and they're still getting all the nutrients that they need from their diet. Because what it does is it doesn't literally just burn the fat because you're taking it. It just stops you from feeling hungry.
Yeah, it's appetite suppression and it slows down your digestion.
Exactly. And that comes with risks as well in the long term.
Of course. And not just risks, Marah. So so the reason why I don't love these drugs, although some people might find this polarizing, is because, so like we were saying, it works by slowing down your digestion and suppressing your appetite, right? So a lot of people want to lose weight. They're like, okay, get me on these drugs, right? Yeah. And they start injecting themselves with it, and they start to lose the weight, right? Say they're on it for 2, 3, 4 months and they lose all the weight and everything's fantastic. So they lost the weight because their appetite was suppressed and their digestion was slowed down. But if they haven't learned the habits, right? They didn't learn about protein intake, portion control, getting your nutrients in, fruit and veg, fiber, exercise. If they haven't learned all those habits, what's going to happen when you stop taking the medicine or the drugs, right?
Gain the weight back.
Exactly. You're going to rebound and shoot back because you haven't built the habits to sustain that weight loss, right? And that's the number one issue I have. It's a quick fix, right? It's not a long-term solution. So in my opinion, so first of all, I personally don't recommend it to my clients. It's just not something that I talk about. If they ask me about it, it depends on the client. If you are, let's say you're morbidly obese at risk of certain complications and you need quick weight loss, like instant, then it could be an option, right? It's a quick fix option because it's an urgent intervention situation. So for things like that, I'm for it. But if you're taking it without building the appropriate habits, like we just mentioned, I feel like it's not the best thing in the world to be taking.
Yeah, it's not at all. But the thing is, what I find, I completely agree with you. It's people will gain the weight back on.
Yeah.
Some people will take it regardless.
Yeah.
So it depends. I think where I work, people take it regardless. I think it depends on the type of clients you get.
Yeah.
So I try to work with them in a way that to minimize their muscle mass loss.
Sure.
But generally speaking, it's not the best thing to take for if you just have to lose 5, 10, 15 kilos. You can easily do that by changing
lifestyle,
four habits, lifestyle, anything.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
Yeah, no, for sure. It comes back to the whole, instant gratification, quick fix thing that our society in general is very fixated on, right? Nowadays, most of us don't like to work for something sustainably. We want to get it instantly, right? We have Deliveroo at a touch of a button. We have people vaping and getting like a nice buzz all of a sudden. It's all about instant dopamine, instant gratification. And I feel like for some people, not for most people, the Ozempic Mounjaro craze falls into that. It's like, okay, I want to lose weight and I want it instantly, right? I want it right now. I want the results immediately. And because it does give you results, people are like, yeah, just get me on it, right? I don't want to go through the long-term game, basically.
Yeah. And I even think about it. I love tying everything back to like psychology and how it makes us feel.
Because it is,
It is a huge thing. But also what Mounjaro does, and I'm thinking about it from my point of view, it switches off one of, like, food gives you that sense of, I don't know what word to use, like sense of pleasure, sense of gratification when you're eating something. So when you're switching that off, I think psychologically that also has an impact. You're not enjoying food anymore, which is something huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how is that going to impact your mental health long term? You're going to be happy with the weight loss, but eventually if you're not feeling hungry, I don't know, it's taking away one of your happy senses.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is just me thinking about it from a different point of view also.
Of course.
That's a really...
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because like you're saying, and I think it's important that you mentioned it, us as nutritionists and dietitians, we look at, food as fuel to get results, but it's so much more than that as well, right? It's part of our social outings. It's part of our cultures. Even a lot of religions revolve around like food, say fasting and having gatherings together, right? Like iftars in Ramadan and things like that. So food is a huge part of your life, right? It's not only fuel to get healthy and look good. It's also a huge cultural, social aspect tied into all of that as well. So coming back to mental health and your well-being, food is a part of all of that as well.
Yeah.
So if you're dulling that, like you were saying, then maybe that's not a fantastic thing.
Yeah. No, but we're on the same page with Mounjaro.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, like a lot of people maybe, especially if they're on it, wouldn't necessarily want to hear this.
Yeah.
But then again, you have some doctors that are heavily pushing it. And especially in the Western, like I see in the US, there's a lot of doctors heavily pushing it. And I get it because there's like an obesity epidemic basically going on in the US and a lot of Western civilizations and cultures.
And I don't think they have the medical capacity to really treat obesity, or not the medical capacity, but I mean not medical capacity, sorry. The word I'm looking for is the amount of people to help with obesity.
Yeah.
It's really difficult there.
Yeah.
There's not as many health professionals as there are obese people.
Yeah.
So they're tackling it in an easy way, if you want to say, and it does work for them.
Yeah.
But over here, there is easier access to a dietitian or a PT or a doctor, but people just want the easy way.
Easy way, the quick fix, like we were saying, right? And again, it comes down to like, especially now, like in our society and our culture, our food has gotten highly processed, ultra tasty and palatable, basically. So a lot of people are just having huge amounts of calories because our food has gotten a lot easier to get access to, like we were saying, Deliveroo, InstaShop, whatever. So a lot of people have access to very high calorie and tasty foods. So when you have all of that as an instant access to yourself, it's gonna one way or another put on some weight for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you find though that in Dubai, we have all these foods and unhealthy processed foods, but there's also so many healthy alternatives.
Of course.
But people automatically think it's healthy, it's not delicious. Like this isn't food, this is rabbit food, this is this, that.
Absolutely.
But just give it a try. It is actually good.
Absolutely. And I think that's because, a lot of the gym and fitness culture pushes the idea or the fact that, to get healthy or to lose weight, you need to be eating like plain chicken breast, broccoli, basic like carbs, like just white rice or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's portrayed that you need to, especially in the fitness bodybuilding scene, which I was a part of in the past, that's pushed as the food that you need to be eating to lose weight. It has to be boring chicken, boring salmon, boring beef or whatever, and everything's bland and not seasoned and not spiced.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to be the case whatsoever. You can absolutely eat delicious food and lose weight at the same time.
Yeah, that's when I think the diet used to be so intimidating, and now it's more flexible. It's not as strict as it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, is there anything else that we didn't mention today that you'd like to add on, maybe? Any points whatsoever?
I think taking it back to what we first step, keep it simple. I know easier said than done, but follow the advice of people that you resonate with, that you trust, and don't listen to anyone that goes for extremes. Weight loss can be done in the easiest way possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we can both say that from our personal experience as well. We've had these struggles, and it really is as simple as...
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, it's also important to, look at things holistically as well, like we mentioned earlier today, because a lot of people, like we were saying, use food as a comfort mechanism, right? So if you're stressed with work or stressed with life, or you have something that's underlying, that's unresolved, people can look to food as a quick dopamine source, and then you tend to overeat that way, right? And I'm sure you've seen that with some of maybe your binge eating clients or something like that. So yeah, it really is, I think it's also important to look at the holistic picture as well. Take a look at your entire environment, your stressors, and tackle some of those, and that can help with your overall lifestyle, including weight loss as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, Marah. I think, that's pretty much all the time we have today. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights. Yeah, of course. And I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome. Awesome.
You.